it's very important that you treat everybody exactly the same with the same kindness, respect and warmth when you come, and you can also expect to be treated in that same way by Kiwis when you arrive in New Zealand.
Welcome to Podcast with Pooja. Today we have with us Ms. Andrea McLeod-Karim, who is the General Manager, India and Emerging Markets, working for Quality New Zealand Education. Andrea comes to the organization with a wealth of knowledge related to international education in New Zealand, having previously worked as an immigration manager at Mumbai Immigration Office, followed by another role as a regional manager, South Asia, the Middle East, Africa with Victoria University, Wellington. She is passionate about supporting children to do their best and choose the right study option in all the universities in New Zealand. Ms. Andrea, it's such a pleasure to have you with us on this podcast show.
Thank you so much, Pooja. It's lovely to be here with you today.
Ms. Andrea, New Zealand, as we know, is an upcoming or emerging study destination for international students. So what are the things that students must do to prepare themselves to have a successful study abroad experience in New Zealand? And if you can share a couple of specific opportunities and challenges that students face while they are in New Zealand University.
Thank you so much, Pooja. That's a great question. So in terms of New Zealand, I think we've seen growing popularity recently, particularly within India, and it's great to see our international students now returning to country after the borders were closed during the pandemic. When we talk about preparing for admission into a New Zealand university, this is actually quite simple. New Zealand universities are very transparent about their entry requirements. They will usually look purely at your academics. So you can focus on school or on university. You don't have to build up the world's most impressive CV alongside that even the United Nations would be proud of. Just focus on getting the highest grades possible. And the entry requirements also very realistic across the board in terms of ensuring that if a student is a quality student, they've done well in their previous studies, they can usually gain a place in one of the programs. So in terms of preparing for admission, very simple, not too many challenges there. So I'm going to focus on more holistic advice about what students should do to do well once they arrive. One thing to remember about New Zealand is that we are not very formal as a society. Mm-hmm. So when you arrive in New Zealand, when you're attending your classes with your professors, don't be surprised if you hear students calling them by their first name. You are welcome to do so as well. There's usually no sir or ma'am in the lecture theatre or in the classroom. And those lecturers and those teachers are also really accessible to you in terms of being able to ask them to come by their office, have a chat, ask questions. Another point that some students find challenging is that in New Zealand, our education system is very much based on critical thinking and creativity. So depending on the subject that you're studying, it's not necessarily that there's a right answer. It's about how you come to your answer. Obviously not the case with things like mathematics and engineering, but with the humanities, with business, with some of the sciences, it's all about how you learn rather than memorizing certain things. What you should also remember is it is okay to disagree with your lecturer. If you have another point that does not agree with theirs, you can actually bring it up in the lecture, you can ask them what they think about it, and it can bring some really stimulating debate to the table alongside. So when you're preparing to study overseas, please remember in order to get as much out of it as possible, it should be an interactive experience. It's not about memorizing things, it's about coming up with your own thoughts and ideas, and it's about those interactions that you'll have in the classroom and with your professors. So sometimes you just need to get over that initial shyness that you might have when you're living in a new country and a new culture. Kiwis, as we refer to ourselves, are very friendly.
Yes.
So you don't need to feel shy at all. People will be very welcoming when you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that thoughtful input. Yeah. So two things. One is, of course, you need to have great academic score when you go and study abroad. And second thing which I really liked about is when you interact with your faculty, you can just be yourself, right? Even if it calls for a debate, go for it and just be yourself and be active and proactive during the same time. So thank you for that thoughtful input, Miss Andrea. This takes us to the next question. New Zealand is known for its innovative spirit, where its focus is on sustainability. Yeah, so what are some of the emerging innovative areas of study that students in New Zealand can consider, basically who want to just go beyond business, engineering and the likes?
Yes, this is a great topic. So New Zealand, I'll just say we do have fabulous business and engineering programs alongside, but we are a world leader when it comes to sustainability and the environment. We have some fantastic government initiatives, and the universities themselves have really innovative programs. So for example, you can do a Bachelor of Climate Change, you can do a Master's of Renewable Energy or of Urban Resilience or of Water Resource Management. The possibilities are endless. A lot of these programs are interdisciplinary, which means that in order to be able to come to a solution, you will be looking at strands involving science, business, law, humanities. So you might have subjects included in your degree which are across all of these faculties to give you the type of knowledge that you need to solve real-life problems in today's world. If you're interested in sustainability, it's not just included in the science curriculum. So our architecture degrees and masters have sustainability components. You can take sustainable business subjects. You can take environmental law subjects if you're doing law. The possibilities are endless there. One thing I wanted to point out that many students are not aware of, New Zealand is actually a hub of filmmaking. So many Hollywood movies come to New Zealand for post-production. So if you are a student who loves animation, VFX, game design, this is an area which is actually really in demand in New Zealand. So there's a number of these areas where you might not automatically think, this is the country for me, but it actually has a really burgeoning industry there. Last point I'd say, we are very well known for subjects related to tourism and agriculture alongside because of the way that our economy is structured. So if you want to find out about how to use precision techniques like drones in agriculture, if you want to learn winemaking, if you want to learn how to do world-class tourism management, New Zealand has some fantastic programs in that area too.
This takes us to the next question. What are the career prospects and some of the skills in high demand for graduates of students studying in New Zealand universities?
Yes. So the great part about studying in New Zealand is that if you've done a bachelor's degree, a master's or a PhD, you have a 3-year open post-study work visa afterwards. So that means when you graduate, you can work for whoever you want in any part of New Zealand. You don't need a job offer to get that visa. When we talk about skills in demand, the New Zealand government actually publishes something called the Green List. So the Green List is on the immigration website and it says exactly which skills are most in shortage in New Zealand. So on that list, there are many skills related to engineering and IT. There's also multimedia specialists. We spoke about the filmmaking before. There's also a lot of subjects related to healthcare within medicine, nursing, psychology, dentistry, you name it, anything related to healthcare is there.
Right.
And then there's some surprises on that list. So teachers are there. New Zealand has a shortage of teachers at primary, secondary and early childhood level, and we would like to recruit more. So that list is a really good basis for seeing what the demand is for a particular occupation there. But that doesn't mean that it's exclusive. It doesn't mean if you're not on that list, there's no good jobs. So I've seen my Indian students go down and do really well in their careers, including becoming government advisors or analysts afterwards, because you're allowed to work for the government in New Zealand even if you're not a citizen. So yeah, it's always lovely to hear from them and see what they're doing afterwards when they've had their graduation.
Whenever students go abroad, it's very important to understand these differences in order to avoid any differences or any conflict. So if you can share or tell us some of the cultural differences between New Zealand and other countries, that would be great.
Yes, definitely. So this is an area I'm really passionate about. We are a multicultural country. We have citizens, residents, migrants from all over the world. And we also have a great deal of focus and respect for our Indigenous culture alongside. So Maori people are the Indigenous people of New Zealand. And although you don't need to know the language, we all speak English. We have a second language called Te Reo Maori. You'll hear some common words in conversation. So we greet each other usually kia ora, which is from Maori, and it's also the word for thank you. So very easy. You've learned two phrases from that one word. So you'll hear some of these words come up. People get really happy even if you know a couple of words, because it's just a nice show of respect, but not required. As a formality when you come down. We follow some very important Maori cultural concepts in day-to-day life. So mana kitanga is how we look after guests. So if you come to New Zealand as a student, at that point you're our guest, and we have a duty of care towards you. So the way that we look after you has to be very warm, very heartfelt. I'll share one more word, which is kaitiakitanga, which is stewardship for the environment. So we believe that we are there to look after the environment. We don't own the land. It's about how we care for it for future generations. One more point, New Zealand does not have like a strong class system. So you might have a millionaire walking down the street in his sandals to pick up his shopping at the supermarket. And that same millionaire might be friends with a carpenter or a plumber. So it's very important that you treat everybody exactly the same, with the same kindness, respect and warmth when you come. And you can also expect to be treated in that same way by Kiwis when you arrive in New Zealand.
So great. It was wonderful chatting with you, Miss Andrea. Thank you so much for your valuable time and talking to our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, Pooja. It was a lovely experience.